Hi guys, welcome back. Today we're moving on to a new topic, but before that, we want to do a quick review. Your review question is, what is diffusion? Go ahead and in your notes, tell me, see if you can remember in your own words, tell me what is diffusion. If you need to, you can look in your notes that you've turned in, I'll grade and give back to you, or the video that we've already watched talking about diffusion. Hopefully you found that diffusion, the definition of diffusion, because we're going on. Using your definition of diffusion, draw a sketch of these particles diffusing. Go ahead and show me on your worksheet what these particles will do, these ones, what they'll do, where they will go. After you've shown me a sketch of the particles diffusing, please define for me what is equilibrium. You can answer that on your worksheet. Go ahead and push pause right now, finish these two questions on your worksheet, then come back to the video and continue. Let's talk about diffusion. Diffusion's super important to our bodies, and we see that it's really important to our cells. Diffusion helps take in nutrients and get rid of waste. One of those key nutrients that has to get in is water. Osmosis is what we're going to talk about today. Okay? And osmosis is the diffusion of water molecules. Okay? Make sure you highlight and really remember that it's water molecules. Okay, diffusion is water molecules using our definition of diffusion from high concentration to low concentration until equal. Let's take a super close look at this picture. The blue circles, they are water. The big green ones are sugar. When we are talking about osmosis, which now your brain should be thinking, ooh, osmosis is the diffusion of water. So I know if Mrs. O says the word osmosis, or if I read the word osmosis, we are talking only about the water molecules. So when we're looking at this picture to talk about osmosis in this picture, we are talking only about the water molecules. Go ahead and highlight all the water molecules, might even help to count all the water molecules on both sides. If you need to pause the video to get that done, go right ahead. Once you've highlighted them, make sure you've counted all of them. You might have gotten a slightly different number than me because these ones that are right in the middle are a little hard to count, or you might have counted them twice. So we know that we actually have 17 molecules of water on this side and 14 on this side. While using our definition of osmosis, we know that they're going to move from the side that there are more of them to the side that there are less of them until they are equal. So, which way will the water move? From the high concentration to the low. Okay. Once they're equal, they'll just go back and forth, always staying equal. So in this case, we have about 21, so we have about 31, so we're going to end up with about 15 or 16 on each side. Why is the water going to move this way? The simplest answer is that water wants to move from where there is more to where there is less until it's balanced. It wants to be in this equilibrium. Now, the other thing we had in our picture were these green ones, our sugar. Is sugar going to move the same way that water did? Well, before we talk about the sugar, we actually need to be sure we understand this term called selectively permeable membrane. Let's pick this term apart one word at a time. Being selective literally means being choosy. So they are selecting, picking which molecules they will let go back and forth. To permeate or permeable means to pass through. And a membrane is just a thin layer. Okay. So a selectively permeable membrane means that it is a choosy, thin layer that some things can pass through. Basically, it allows certain molecules through depending on their size and technically if they have a positive or a negative charge, but we're not going to spend long talking about that. So to answer our question, tell me, what do you think? Is the sugar going to do osmosis? Right there, you should definitely say, no osmosis for sugar. Why? Okay, because only water does osmosis. So even if we were to accidentally say, yes, the sugar is doing osmosis, you definitely should know in your mind that's absolutely not possible because osmosis is only water. Osmosis is only water. Drill it in your head. Make sure you write it on your paper. Osmosis is only when water diffuses. Okay? So now our question is, can the sugar actually diffuse? Okay? Looking at our picture, do you see the sugar molecules on both sides or only one side? I'm sure you answered in your own head. Of course, it's only on one side. This is because the selectively permeable membrane does not let the sugar through. So why isn't the sugar diffusing? Okay. The selectively permeable membrane, sorry, I'll spell that right. Does not let the sugar through. Think of it like going through a toll booth. If you pull up to the toll booth and you actually have the little I-pass, the bar will raise and you can go through. On the other hand, if you pull up to the toll booth and you don't have an I-pass, you get stuck and you have to stop. Let's take this concept and apply it to a couple of different living things. There are two different types of cells between plants and animals. So I want you to think about what the difference is between plant and animals. The key difference, a key difference, is that plant cells have this outer layer called a cell wall on all of their cells. Okay? You and I, being animal cells, do not. You and I have an outer layer of a cell that is semi-permeable. Plant cells are a little bit more selective. So osmosis happens in our cells. This is how we get water in and out of our cells. Remember that when our cells do cellular respiration, we make water as a product in that process. And we also need water in many of our other chemical processes. So water needs to be able to get in and out quickly and easily from all areas of the cell. Osmosis can happen at any angle on the cell. So the big difference between plant and animal cells is that osmosis is going to happen through all sides and very, very specifically into all areas of a cell. We are going to do a lab after you finish these notes looking at one of the largest cells that we can see with our human eyes, and we're going to put it in a couple of different solutions to see what will happen to it. So a couple of quick words that you should probably be aware of. We're going to use the word isotonic, and this is when the concentration of solutes is the same inside and outside of the cell. Basically what that means is that there's the same amount of whatever substance we're talking about inside and outside. Hypertonic, using the word hyper, means that the solution has a higher concentration than the cell. In this case, the water's going to move out to try to make it balanced. We're going to show you this in the lab. The third word that you need to know for this lab is hypo, meaning little or low. Hypotonic means that inside of the cell, there is more of our substance than outside. So all of the solution, the water, is going to move into the cell, and we're going to see the cell change size. What do you think would happen if we put a cell in a solution, a hypotonic solution, overnight? Diffusion and osmosis are super important to us in our bodies, in particular to help with our excretory system. So our excretory system is our system responsible with our kidneys and our bladder so that we can urinate and go to the bathroom. Our kidneys and our bladders help pull out excess water from our entire systems within our body. We have learned a vocab word that is the definition of maintaining a stable internal environment. Please remember, look back, see if you can figure out what is the vocab word that means a stable internal environment. When you figured out the answer, go on to the next slide. Hopefully, you remembered and found the vocab word that means a stable internal environment is homeostasis. So homeostasis is super important in our bodies for many, many different things, including our temperature, how much water, how many minerals, how much vitamin, and how much food is in our body. These are both physical and chemical conditions required for us to live. We know that our body maintains homeostasis through the diffusion of minerals, vitamins, and food, and through the osmosis of water. So, in thinking about how often this must happen in our body, do you think diffusion takes energy? Do you remember? You can look back in your notes. Does osmosis take energy? Write your answer in on your notes. When you finish writing in your answer, go to the next slide. If you said it has to use tons of energy, cross that out. Nope, 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 nope. Diffusion and osmosis are fantastic and super useful to our bodies because no energy is needed. Remembering from our last set of notes, this definition is called passive transport. Passive meaning no energy. Required. And transport to move back and forth. Go ahead, answer these questions. So think and share. Tell me what osmosis is. Tell me what the difference between diffusion and osmosis are. And then tell me, do either require energy? And so what type of transport are they examples of? Stop the video. It is going to take you several minutes to go through your notes to make sure that you have this answered. I'm going to go on. Don't come back to this until those questions are answered because we're going to change topics a little. Welcome back. Hopefully you got your questions answered before you've pushed play again. Otherwise, stop the recording, finish answering your questions, and then come back to our last couple of slides before we're done with this material and you get to do a lab. The answer to our last questions included telling us whether or not diffusion and osmosis require an energy. Your answer on the last page will be turned into me for points. We're going to move on and talk about something called active transport. Our body needs more than water in its system. Sometimes it needs minerals and food. In this case, those do not easily go in and out of a cell. Instead, we need to have a specific location, and our body is even willing to spend some energy to move what it needs from one side of a cell to the other side. So when we need to move things like sodium and potassium from one side of a cell to the other, sometimes that's against the balance where you need more sugar in your cell than is in your bloodstream. In this case, your body must use energy, and we call that active, requires energy. Transport, movement. The energy that we talk about and that you guys learned about when we were doing photosynthesis and cellular respiration is a molecule called ATP. Sometimes our body needs really, really large molecules inside of a cell. In that case, we do something called endocytosis. This is where your cell makes a pocket around an object and sucks it inside. And as a result, you will get a cell that sees something that it wants to eat. Although technically it's not really eating, it's just called assimilating. Okay? And it creates a bubble around it. And then pinches it into its own cell so that it can have that needed large molecule. We've talked about macromolecules before, like proteins, lipids, things like that. This process, when a cell pinches in a large molecule, is called endocytosis. There are even some crazy cells in our body whose job is to eat other cells. They do this process called endocytosis. Understanding that sometimes our body has endocytosis, where it has to grab something and pull it into the cell. Sometimes our body has massive things that it needs to get rid of in each cell. In this case, you'd have a cell, whatever it needs to get rid of, the waste, and it is going to make a little pocket with that object in it. And then that cell is going to do the exact opposite and spit out whatever substance that was that it doesn't want anymore. In summary, osmosis is fill in your own words. And osmosis is important because our body, every cell, must have water. Lots of water. So osmosis is really important because every cell must have lots of water. We're going to do a lab to see what happens when we put a large cell. This cell is an egg. Yes, an egg is a huge single cell. We're going to see what happens when we put an egg in different substances, whether it takes water in or whether it lets the water out of the cell into the surrounding environment. Osmosis and diffusion are both super important because they get the needed nutrients, water, minerals, and food into the cell. It's equally as important because when our body does the process of cellular respiration, it makes a waste product that it has to get out. If the waste can't get out, we would be extremely sick. The big idea that you should walk away with from these notes is the definition of osmosis, that every cell must have lots of water, and the reason that we have both diffusion and osmosis is so that our body, every single cell, can get nutrients, water, minerals, and food in, and equally as important, get all of the waste out. Go ahead, turn in your notes, check in with me to see what we're doing in our lab, and feel free to come back and look at these notes if you need a refresher, as we're going to have a quiz after we finish this lab.